The bright lights of the Manhattan studio glowed like diamonds against the sleek white set. The air was thick with anticipation as producers hurried about, cameras whirred to life, and the audience whispered excitedly. The episode of the day was already trending before it began, a special political discussion featuring Ivanka Trump and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. The topic was women, power, and accountability in modern America. But everyone knew what they had really come to see: two powerful women from opposite ends of the political spectrum, sitting face to face. Ivanka, dressed immaculately in a cream-colored blazer and gold earrings, exuded the calm, polished confidence of someone used to public scrutiny. Her posture was perfect, her smile controlled. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, carried an entirely different energy, assertive, grounded, and unfiltered. Dressed sharply in royal blue, she projected authenticity and conviction before even speaking a word. The moment the cameras started rolling, you could feel the electricity in the air. The moderator gave a brief introduction, welcoming both guests, then opened with a question about grace under pressure in political leadership. Ivanka leaned slightly forward, her tone poised and deliberate. Leadership, especially for women, requires composure, she began smoothly. It's about setting a tone of grace and cooperation even when others choose confrontation. I've always believed strength doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. Applause rippled through the audience, and for a moment, it seemed Ivanka had set the tone. But Jasmine wasn't one to let vague platitudes slide by. She smiled politely before replying, "Grace is important, but let's not confuse grace with silence. Sometimes strength has to be loud, especially when people are being ignored or misled. Real leadership isn't just about staying calm, it's about telling hard truths even when it's uncomfortable." There was a subtle shift in the audience, a soft murmur, a few nods. Ivanka's expression didn't falter, but a flicker of tension passed through her eyes. "Of course," she replied lightly. "But I think shouting matches don't lead to progress. Constructive dialogue, listening, that's what makes real change." Jasmine tilted her head slightly, her gaze unwavering. "Constructive dialogue is great," she said, "when everyone at the table is being honest. But when people in power rewrite history, or conveniently leave out the damage their decisions caused, that's not dialogue. That's performance." The audience's reaction was instant, a mixture of gasps and scattered applause. Even the moderator looked uneasy but let them continue. Ivanka adjusted the lapel of her blazer, her voice steady but a touch colder now. "I think that's an unfair generalization," she said. "My family, and I personally, have faced intense public scrutiny. Much of it has been politically motivated. What I focus on is moving forward and creating opportunities for others, not dwelling on the past." Jasmine's smile faded, replaced with conviction. "See, that's the difference," she said. "For some, the past is just politics. But for others, it's lived reality. People lost their jobs, their homes, their faith in the system, and it wasn't a political game for them. You can't talk about moving forward without first taking responsibility for what got us here." The studio fell into a heavy silence for a beat. Ivanka blinked, her lips parting as if to respond, but Jasmine wasn't finished. "We can't build progress on denial," she continued. "Forgiveness comes after truth, not before." The statement hit hard. Several audience members applauded loudly, while others sat frozen, their eyes darting between the two women. Ivanka's trademark calm seemed to waver for a split second. She took a slow breath, then said carefully, "I think your passion is admirable, Congresswoman, but leadership also means not letting anger dictate your message." Jasmine leaned forward slightly, her tone calm but cutting. "Oh, this isn't anger," she said. "This is accountability. There's a difference, and if accountability makes people uncomfortable, maybe it's because they've never had to face it before." That line landed like thunder. Even the moderator's attempt to interject was drowned out by the swell of reactions, applause, gasps, whispers. The control Ivanka usually commanded in interviews seemed to slip further as Jasmine's words echoed. Ivanka forced a smile, trying to bring the tension down. "You're entitled to your opinion," she said finally, her voice tight. Jasmine nodded, not missing a beat. "And I'm entitled to truth. That's what leadership really looks like." The studio audience erupted. The cameras zoomed in on Ivanka's composed but visibly stiff expression as the show abruptly cut to commercial break. The producers scrambled in the background while social media feeds exploded with reactions before the segment had even finished airing. In those few minutes before the cameras went dark, one thing was clear: what began as a polite conversation about grace and composure had turned into a defining clash between image and authenticity. And the viewers could already sense that when the show returned, it wasn't over yet. When the cameras came back from commercial, the atmosphere inside the studio had shifted completely. The polite tension from earlier had evolved into something electric, unpredictable. Ivanka Trump sat composed, her smile back in place but her body language telling a different story. She crossed one leg over the other, straightened her notes, and adjusted her mic as though to reassert control. Across from her, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett looked relaxed, unbothered, the kind of calm that only comes from knowing you've already won the room. The moderator, visibly cautious now, tried to steer the discussion back to safer territory. "Let's move forward," he said, forcing a smile. "Both of you represent very different approaches to leadership. What do you think women in power can learn from one another?" Ivanka's tone was measured. "I think the lesson is about balance," she said, her voice soft but deliberate. "It's about knowing when to speak up, and when to listen. Real leadership isn't about dominance, it's about understanding." It was an elegant answer, textbook perfect. The audience nodded politely, though their energy was far more subdued than before. Jasmine let Ivanka finish completely, then leaned forward, her voice even but firm. "Balance is important," she agreed. "But too often, balance becomes an excuse for inaction. Sometimes people in power talk about balance when what they really mean is comfort, staying quiet to protect the system that benefits them." The audience erupted again, half in applause, half in disbelief. Ivanka's eyes darted briefly toward the crowd before returning to Jasmine. Her tone tightened. "I don't think it's fair to imply that silence equals complicity. Sometimes silence is grace, choosing not to engage in negativity." Jasmine smiled, her response almost immediate. "That's easy to say when silence doesn't cost you anything," she replied. "For a lot of people, silence is survival. But when you have a platform, when you have power, silence becomes privilege." That line hit like lightning. Even the moderator froze, unsure whether to intervene. The audience began clapping again, louder this time, and it was clear Jasmine had struck a chord. Ivanka's polished expression wavered just slightly, the corners of her mouth twitching into something between a smirk and a grimace. Trying to regain control, she spoke again. "Congresswoman, I appreciate your passion. But I think there's a difference between being passionate and being divisive. I've worked hard to uplift women in business and public life without tearing anyone down in the process." Jasmine nodded thoughtfully, but her eyes remained locked on Ivanka. "Lifting women up is important," she said, "but you can't do it selectively. Uplift doesn't mean photo ops and hashtags. It means showing up when it's uncomfortable, standing with women who don't have your last name or your connections. That's what real solidarity looks like." The studio audience broke into applause so strong the moderator had to pause again. The reaction clearly threw Ivanka off balance. She tried to speak, but Jasmine wasn't finished. "You talk about unity," Jasmine continued, "but unity without accountability isn't unity, it's silence dressed up as peace." That line, sharp and unflinching, was the moment that sealed it. Viewers at home would replay it again and again over the next 24 hours. Ivanka's face softened into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Well," she said finally, her tone calm but cool, "I think we'll have to agree to disagree on methods. But I do believe we both want the same thing, a stronger, more respectful future." Jasmine nodded once. "Respect is earned through truth," she replied, her tone steady. "And sometimes truth sounds disrespectful to those not used to hearing it." That final exchange drew the loudest reaction yet, half applause, half shock. The moderator, realizing the show had spun into viral gold, quickly wrapped it up. "Well, that's all the time we have today," he said nervously. "A powerful discussion from two powerful women. Thank you both for joining us." As the credits rolled, Ivanka offered Jasmine a professional smile and extended her hand. Jasmine shook it firmly, then turned to wave at the audience, who greeted her with cheers. Ivanka's team swooped in almost immediately, ushering her toward the hallway while whispering damage control strategies. Within minutes, social media lit up. Clips of the confrontation flooded TikTok, X, and Instagram. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Crockett vs Ivanka, hashtag truth over polish, hashtag silence is privilege, and hashtag mic drop moment. One clip of Jasmine saying, "Silence is privilege," racked up millions of views within hours. Pundits on both sides rushed to weigh in, some praising Jasmine for her unapologetic honesty, others accusing her of disrespect. By that evening, Every major network was replaying the exchange. Late-night hosts joked about Ivanka's grace under fire, while commentators called Jasmine's performance the viral moment of the year. Even international outlets picked it up, labeling it a cultural clash between diplomacy and directness. Ivanka released a carefully worded statement the next morning: "I always welcome passionate discussion. Though I may disagree with certain views, I remain committed to respectful dialogue and unity." Jasmine, however, took to social media with a single, unfiltered post: "If telling the truth makes people uncomfortable, maybe it's time they ask themselves why." That post went viral instantly. Comment sections overflowed with applause, support, and endless debate. Memes were born, soundbites were remixed into songs, and analysts declared Jasmine Crockett a rising political powerhouse. Ivanka's calm elegance had always been her armor, but this time, authenticity had broken through it. The next day, as the clip continued dominating headlines, one commentator summed it up perfectly: "Ivanka Trump spoke with polish, but Jasmine Crockett spoke with purpose." And in today's world, purpose wins. In the end, Ivanka may have left the stage looking composed, but Jasmine Crockett left it unforgettable. Title: Ivanka Trump tried to outtalk Jasmine Crockett. What happened next shocked everyone. Description: when Ivanka Trump faced off with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett on live TV, what began as a calm discussion turned into a fiery exchange that stunned the nation. Jasmine's fearless honesty left audiences cheering, and Ivanka speechless. Hashtags: Hashtag Ivanka Trump, hashtag Jasmine Crockett, hashtag viral debate, hashtag truth over polish, hashtag silence is privilege, hashtag political showdown, hashtag mic drop moment. Keywords: Ivanka Trump debate, Jasmine Crockett clash, live TV argument, viral confrontation, truth versus power, political accountability, shocking interview moment.